The following program contains mature subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Taking a relationship to the next level. This is Passion with Dr. Laurie.
Welcome to Passion, a show about love, sex, and relationships. Tonight we focus on dating. It is Dating Dilemmas, the last Wednesday of every month. We invite our dating crew right here. Frank Kermit, who is a dating coach. He's the author of many books and audio lectures and all kinds of stuff on dating, and he can be found at franktalks.com. We also have Fritz-Gerald Morisseau, who is the founder and president of Elite Speed Dating, elitespeeddating.com. Very excited to have you back on, guys.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
So we have a lot of things to talk about. I've read some of you've been pretty prolific this week in your writings,
Always
Frank.
am. Always am.
So you wrote one article that I saw in the Suburban online, which was about cuffing season. So I thought, okay, this is an important issue. And you brought up something in there that I mean, I've talked about this before, but not in the way you talked about it, which was, and I hadn't thought about this, that, getting back together with an ex out of fear of being alone for the holidays. I didn't realize that was so common, but I guess it is if you wrote about it.
It's a common enough because it's a big question that comes up during this period, which is about 1 month to 6 weeks before the major holidays, where people are more likely to give someone a chance if things don't work out, they're feeling a little bit more attached, or they just realize, I don't want to be alone over the holidays. Well, let's tough this out and figure out in the new year if we still want to be together.
So just for our listeners who have never heard the expression cuffing season, give us a little definition.
Cuffing season, also known as coupling season, represents the 4 to 6 week period before a holiday season, regardless of what holidays you're celebrating, because it's something that applies to any and all cultures, where people are more likely to get back together with an ex because they don't want to be alone going into the major holiday season.
So they want to cuff to somebody, in other words.
The idea is you're going to be handcuffed, you're going to be attached to someone as if you were handcuffed to them, because people don't want to be alone during this time.
You specifically mentioned an ex. Is it only with an ex?
May not only be with an ex, it's also for anybody who's, for lack of a better term, the holidays are coming, I don't want to be alone, I'm going to lower my standards, maybe be desperate, and the ex or an ex is usually the easiest person that you can reach out to and rekindle something with, because you've gone through the awkward phase of dating already with this person. They already know you intimately. There isn't this build-up. There isn't this, I got to meet somebody new and go through all of this rituals of meeting someone new. And when do I bring this up? And, well, maybe I shouldn't talk about that right away. And with an ex, well, they already know. And, if you had a few good times when you were with that person, you're going to start thinking about those more than the reasons you actually broke up.
They probably also met the parents already.
In some cases, if it was a serious relationship. Yeah. Also, if, let's say they've been in a serious relationship and then broke up, let's say, a few weeks ago, and then, it's the holidays, maybe we should give it another chance. Right. And they're a lot more motivated to try.
Right. It must be a busy time. Also, I'm thinking, all right, the holiday, there's the Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever holidays you're celebrating, right after Valentine's Day, right? Yes. So people are already thinking, maybe, I don't want to be alone for that day. You don't want to meet somebody the week before Valentine's Day. So now is the time to be kind of actively seeking, actively dating. So I imagine in your line of work, Fritz, that people are wanting to attend events, speed dating events, much more now.
Yes, well, there's actually a deadline to it. All the way up until, I could say, 10 days before Christmas.
Okay.
Then they're looking to meet people,
active.
Right? They're active. A lot more phone calls, a lot more, do you have events for such and such, and so and so. So a lot more active. Once I could even tell you a date. Once the 13th of December usually hits, that's it. They're out of commission. Now they're buying gifts.
And they've kind of accepted, right? That, right. Okay, I'll probably be alone for the holidays, or not coupled, let's say, because doesn't mean you're alone. It just means you're not coupled.
But very funny thing, it starts right after again. I usually, well, within the past 6 years, I've gotten phone calls. Do you have something as of the 27th, 28th? So right after of December.
Okay, so right after people are now newly focused. Well, now they have Valentine's Day on their radar.
Well, before that, they have New Year's.
New Year's.
And
Oh,
they want
yeah,
to make
New
sure they have
Year's.
someone to kiss
Right.
on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Oh, do people still really? Yeah, I guess.
Yes,
okay.
they do.
Let's see what happens when you've been married so many years. Like, you get so jaded with that. You really need somebody to kiss on New Year's Eve. Oh, boy. Our dating dilemma tonight. If you have questions about dating, any questions at all, if you have questions about speed dating or other forms of meeting people, where to meet, how to meet, if you want to know if you're doing it right or you want some tips, then my panelists can certainly help. Frank Kermit, dating coach, is here. Fritz is here of Elite Speed Dating, so he can certainly answer those questions. So we would love to hear from you. 514-800 to text in, or 514-790-0800 if you'd like to call in. So for our listeners, just wondering, is this, would you rather reconnect with an ex just not to be alone, or are you okay to be alone during the holidays? That's, part of it. So let's see here. This texter writes, oh God, there's a reason why they're an ex, once an ex, always an ex. Why do people subject themselves to such emotional turmoil? I'd never get back with an ex. I'll stay single instead and get a girlfriend just for the sake of having a girlfriend. I just don't get it. Yeah, a lot of people feel that way, and other people feel quite lonely and different.
Well, the person who just texted you obviously feel comfortable being alone, and you don't associate pain with being alone.
Exactly.
But with some people, the pain of being alone is much worse than the pain of having to deal with the issues that caused you and your ex to become exes.
So it's like I can handle the drama and I can handle the emotional turmoil more than I can handle the pain of being alone.
Exactly. And that's why some people do it.
Right.
Yeah. And with that said, there's people right now going into the holiday season that would rather be single. I posted this on social media, and someone on my Facebook said, it's much better to just be single over the holidays. You save a lot of money, and then after Valentine's Day, then you can go ahead and look for someone new.
That's that's smart thinking. It's true. I mean, it will cost you a whole lot more, right? You can just wait a few weeks. No, you're not okay with that, Fritz?
Time waits for no man. So
you
should do what you feel like doing. I don't think that postponing meeting someone should warrant that frame of thought, but hey, to each his own. I can respect that.
I think it's a question of priority. If your priority is to save money, well, dating can get expensive, especially if you can't vet and filter people.
I disagree with that. It doesn't necessarily have to be expensive unless you really have to show off.
I do not want to get into the argument about McDonald's, okay? We are not doing that tonight. You do not take your date to McDonald's. Could we just say that?
Yes,
no,
I completely agree.
McDonald's is okay.
Stop.
McDonald's, any place is okay for a first date. If you want to save on your pennies, you can save on your pennies.
You have so many things to do around the city, walks, things to see, the old port, whether in Montreal, Toronto,
you don't have to pay big bucks. That's true. It doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. And actually, it could be more romantic to do something where, we'll go on a little picnic or
skating at the atrium.
Or skating, yeah.
Usually
a picnic in the winter.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Yes, okay, no picnic in the winter, in an igloo, whatever. I don't know.
There you go. That's
Get the
great
ice wine
date right there.
Ice wine, exactly. Dating dilemmas tonight. If you have questions, 514-800. Coming up, we'll also talk about is being single too long a red flag? Is it something you should look for? Frank wrote an article for the Pornhub Sexual Wellness Center that we want to talk about as well. That's all coming up.
The latest trends and hottest topics, love and sex, handled honestly and with passion. Here's Dr. Laurie, CJAD 800.
Got any questions about dating? It is our dating dilemmas tonight. We have Frank Kermit in studio. He's a dating coach from franktalks.com. We also have Fritz-Gerald Morisseau of elitespeeddating.com. If you have questions, ask them. 514-800. Here's one for you. Are there questions you can ask before initiating the first date so you don't end up trapped on a first date with someone who's really not compatible? So, which actually brings me to the question, like, how much interaction should you have? Because I'm finding like millennials spend an awful lot of time texting back and forth before they actually meet. At least that's what I'm seeing around me. But is there, like, how much should you be communicating ahead of time? How many questions do you ask? What questions do you ask? And then,
Generally speaking, and look, this was a really loaded question here because we're talking about the practices of some millennials as well as in general what you should bring up.
Yeah.
Figure out what your absolute most important boundaries are. That's what you start with. What are those big things that if they're there, it doesn't matter how great the person is, if that X, Y, and Z is there, that's what you bring up first. That's what you would find out first because it's that important to you.
And something I would think of like, does the person smoke?
Okay, that's an example.
Right? That could be a non-negotiable for you. So you got to find out what your non-negotiables are.
Right. So once you figure out what your absolute, and I'm not talking about your preferences. Difference between a boundary and a preference. Preference is, I'd like it, but I could do without it. I don't really mind. If you don't mind, then it's not a topic for that initial discussion. Give me your absolute boundaries.
Like I've met people who said, I will never date somebody with kids, for example.
That might
so
be
that can be a non-negotiable, for
Right.
example.
I actually am going to disagree with the both of you because I believe
Okay.
I'm in the business of speed dating where I
Yes.
believe you meet face to face. So no matter what plan you got, no matter how many texts that have been sent back and forth, it will not matter because once you get face to face, that's where the magic happens.
That's where the chemistry initially happens, I think, because
Exactly.
I look, it's not really a disagreement. Let's just agree to disagree
Yes,
that it's not a disagreement. Okay. Because I believe that you should meet as quickly as possible.
Yes.
So the whole idea of speed dating I like because you get to see, first impressions are made very quickly when you are face to face with somebody's energy. I don't want to sound too out there, but energy meaning how do they come off? What are they emitting? Eye contact, body language, all of that matters.
Do you have a compatible vibe?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like the vibe. So let's call it a vibe,
And
but
I'm on the
it's
same
chemistry,
wavelength as
right?
you.
But that's that whether you call it vibe, chemistry, compatibility, whatever you want to call it. It's something you sense. It's
That's
something
right.
you feel.
That's right.
So unfortunately, what I see happening is that tons of texting
That is
back and
killing.
forth.
That will kill attraction.
Well, I don't know if it's killing attraction, but it's certainly giving a false sense of like,
Yes.
oh, this person seems so perfect. And, they're saying all the right things. And sure, they're spending time thinking, what am I going to write? And, whatever.
Texting is great when you want to set parameters such as when we're going to meet, what time we're going to meet, where we're going to meet. That's great for texting because it's quick, but any type of in-depth conversation you save for when you meet face to face. After you've gotten over the absolute things where it's, I don't want to be on a date with somebody that has X, Y, and Z because those X, Y, and Z's means you're not going to want to date them anyway. But everything else you have to find out. You're going to have to find out on the date.
Right.
Don't look at being on a date as being trapped. You're there for what? For 20 minutes sometimes? An
You
hour
do a
and
coffee
half?
date. This is why
Keep it
first
simple.
dates are coffee
Yes.
dates. By the way, this is why speed dating works because
Yes.
they are 7 to 10 minute mini dates.
Exactly.
Where it's enough time to at least get a feel whether you want to have a longer date with the person. That's all you're trying to find out on that first date.
Yeah.
Do I want a second date or do I want a prolonged date?
That's exactly right.
You should go in it with that and that alone as your expectation. So there's no trapping if you set out to say, you know what, let's meet to see if we hit it off. Let's meet to see if there's, if we feel compatible. So let's just go for coffee. I have, between 7 and 8 free, and then I have an appointment at 8. Well, if it goes really, really well, I can cancel my 8 o'clock appointment. Believe me, you'd cancel your 8
Yes,
o'clock appointment.
exactly.
So that and so you set it up that way. So you have an out. So you are not trapped. You give yourself the out. but you can change that if it actually goes really well.
And if it goes really well, you can talk about breakfast in bed.
Yeah, okay. We're jumping the gun. We're jumping the gun, Frank. Stop right there. All right. Texter writes, "Hi, Frank. Big fan of yours from Edmonton, Alberta.
Okay.
I want to know how to ask a girl out in a social circle like a dance class, when to do it, and do you be direct or indirect?" I'm a big fan of direct, but...
Okay, now you're in a dance class in a social circle. You have to be very careful because you don't know who else in that social circle is interested in her. And you don't go around asking anybody, because if you do, the person you ask might be thinking, "No, man, I'm not going to help you get her. I want to date her." You keep your mouth shut, first and foremost. Don't let anybody in the class know that you're interested. Get her alone, whether it's by the water cooler or that you make an arrangement to say, "Hey, I wanted to talk to you about that thing that we were bringing up. Do you have a couple of minutes after the class?" Make sure that you're private because, again, we want to protect her reputation. We don't know how she's going to react. She may not want the kind of attention that she's going to get when somebody's very direct, goes right up to her in front of everyone else and says,
"Oh, yeah, no.
Hey, I really
Right.
like you. I want to ask you out."
Right.
Once you get her alone,
That I get, yeah.
you bring it up. Now, if you want to go indirect, try to find out what she's interested in. And if you have a common interest, if she's a big fan of a particular artist and there's going to be a showing at a museum, you can say, "I'd like to check that out as well. Why don't we go together?"
But that requires extensive conversation.
It requires
a
little bit more of
Yeah.
a conversation. If you don't have time for that, once you're alone, that's where you say, "Look, this is what I like about you." Now remember, she has to feel that the attention is earned. Otherwise, she has no idea why you want to go out with her other than you find her physically attractive. Talk about what it is about her that you like that's beyond her looks. This will make her feel, okay, this attention is warranted somehow, and she's more likely to give you a shot.
So you could say something like, "I love your confidence on the dance floor."
Exactly. Or, "I was listening to you talk to so on, and I really love the way that you communicated and you said that. I love that you have this particular opinion or position because I can relate to it. I want to know more."
Right. So I think that's a really good advice, actually. Don't focus on her looks. "I want to go out with you because you're really pretty."
It's just understood, okay? Look, if you're a guy and she's a girl and you want to go out on a date, it's understood that you're attracted to her because you wouldn't want to be with her if you wouldn't.
Right.
That's why I'm suggesting you take her aside, don't embarrass her, be mindful of her, and you can tell her, "I didn't want to ask you in front of anyone else because I'm mindful of a person's reputation," which is an emotional need. And look, if at that point she says, "Look, I'm just really not interested," all right, take care, and then focus on someone else. But at least you haven't set it up. But be mindful that because this is a social circle, chances are she may share this information with other people in the social circle. And when you go back to the next dance class, if somebody looks at you and smiles because, "Well, I know something about you," you got to be able to handle that social pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of emotional needs, I just want to mention this, that Frank's going to be on open mic night with Stephanie Erickson on Saturday night between 9 and 10 p.m. talking exactly about that. He wrote a book called Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test, which is a very interesting book.
And a very interesting
Developed
title.
and a very interesting title, but...
My
developed
bestseller,
a
actually.
theory. Yeah, and it's excellent and it's fun to read because it puts things in certain perspective. But the women's emotional needs in terms of dating, and guys should know this, just like women should know about men's emotional needs as well, and addressing those. Texter writes, "Saying things via text is too easy. Much harder saying things face to face." Yeah, I agree. It's too easy, and you lose the ability to do this.
That's why it has so much impact, because it's not easy for some people to enter a social interaction. It's not easy to sit there and look somebody in the eye. And I'm not talking about just for romantic relationships. Some people are struggling just to socially be with other people and not hide behind the protection and the comfort of a screen.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of vulnerability sometimes when you got to put yourself out there. And I'm seeing this with younger people, in their 20s. They're so used to dealing through technology that when they get face to face, they're not comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah.
And this is something you're only going to get comfortable with practice.
Right. Right. It's like, yes, it's going to be awkward. It's okay for it to be awkward. We expected for it to be awkward, but the more you practice, the less awkward it becomes. I guess experiences in speed dating helps you do that. I mean, I imagine the first person you talk to for 7 minutes is a lot harder than the last person you talk to for 7 minutes. You've got the chance to practice.
Yes, exactly. People tend to be more and more comfortable as they go along. Some probably need a drink to first start off, but once they've broken the ice, they know how they're feeling. They know what their vibe is, and they can definitely portray or at least that self-confidence a lot more and ease into the conversation or ease out, switch subjects, just because they know that they have X amount going through that evening.
So I think it's important. Practice is, even in dating,
Practice is
even
important.
communicating, socializing, all of that takes practice.
You just reminded me of a joke. How much does a polar bear weigh?
How much?
Just enough to break the ice.
I was expecting a dirty joke. Okay.
Give
See
me
where
some
my
credit.
mind goes, right? Well, it's a show about sex anyway. I can expect
Do you find
those
polar bears
occasionally.
sexy, Lori? Let's talk about
Not
that.
really,
Is there a
no.
polar bear fetish club out
Apparently, they're quite vicious. Polar
They are.
bears.
Apparently, they've been now mating with grizzlies. Why, we're talking about polar bears? No, they've been mating with grizzlies due to climate
They
change.
have not.
They have.
Speaking of sex,
Now,
are you serious?
yes, they have been, and now they're.
You can do that?
They've started because the polar bear is a descendant of a grizzly. So if they do mate, they can still have babies that will continue. And due to
Oh.
the climate change and polar bears moving up, they've now started to mate with grizzlies.
Look at you
Very
knowing the
interesting.
mating practices of bears. Who would have thought that? You learn something new every day.
The nature of sex and the new wilderness.
that's
with
right.
Fritz.
Dating dilemmas tonight on the program. We will continue and we'll address the being single too long. Is that a red flag? And I'm sure some of you who have been single a long time are like, oh, what are they going to say about that? And you're hoping you're not a red flag. So we'll see when it is, when it isn't, and what to do about it.
The following program contains mature subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Your relationship's on the line. Connect with Dr. Laurie now. 514-790-0800. Passion. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Tonight on the program, Dating Dilemmas, the one night of the month that we focus just exclusively on dating issues. Frank Kermit joins me of franktalks.com. He is a dating coach, the author of over 20 books on the topics of dating. We have Fritz-Gerald Morisseau, who is the founder and president of Elite Speed Dating, and also a lawyer, which makes it so interesting that you... How does a lawyer go into speed dating exactly?
Well, first of all, you have to really love people. That's
Yep.
number one. I was doing my articling about 6 years ago. Now we're in 2017, 7 years ago, and was not feeling the whole vibe. I just came back from Ottawa at that time and was really
You were
doing
single
so much
at the time?
Yes,
Right.
I was single at the time, so really loving life and everything that it could bring, and really meeting people. I was never that much of a techno guy as well, so the whole tweeting, actually Tinder didn't exist.
That's right. No
at that
Tinder
time.
then. No.
And meeting people was very fun. So once I started working and realizing that being a lawyer is really, really demanding and it takes a lot of your time, I went to a speed dating event with all the prejudices that someone can have. And
You were
within
looking.
3
You
dates,
were looking to date.
I was looking to date. I was looking to date. I was pulling in the hours. I was looking for someone who was going to be my match.
Did you meet your
per
wife
se.
at one of these events?
No, not the one that I have. Well,
No.
not
but-
the
not
one that I went
Okay.
to. No, because after the one that I went to, I started my own company, which is Elite Speed
You just
Dating.
said, I can do it better.
Yes,
Right? That was
exactly.
you. I can do this better. Because you didn't need another profession. Yeah, right. You needed that one, right? All right, let's talk a little bit about being single too long. First of all, what is too long? But Frank wrote a very interesting article that can be found at on the Pornhub Sexual Wellness Center page, which, by the way, is pornhub.com pornhub.com/sex, you bypass all pornography. I'm just telling you right now, when you get to it, you get to only articles, important articles. That's it. So let's talk about that. Is it a red flag for everybody?
It's not a red flag for everybody. It has to do with the reason you've been single for so long. But if you have been single a long time, here's what makes it a red flag. You get used to a certain routine. You get used to a certain lifestyle. You may get used to things like staying in on a Saturday night. You don't want to go out. You want to just do what your thing is, which could be curling up with a good book. And then at some point, somebody asks you out on a date and says, well, when are you free? And that person's probably indicating, well, maybe Saturday night's a good night for us to get together. You're not thinking Saturday because you're thinking, well, no, I don't want to interrupt my routine. And it's these types of thinking, these types of behavior patterns, which make a person a red flag because they're so used to being alone that even something like having someone else sleep in the same bed as them becomes a challenge. So if you're too used to being alone, too used to being an independent person, the idea of losing that independence for some people, it makes them feel uncomfortable.
Right.
You know, a completely single person who hasn't had to date in a long time can come and go as they please. And even though they may be open to the idea of meeting someone, they may resent the fact that, well, now that I'm dating somebody, do I have to check in with them when I just want to go out on a Thursday night because we were supposed to make plans? And it's these types of things that make it a little bit more difficult for somebody who's gotten comfortable being single to even start dating again.
And making room, like I've met some people who've been single for a long time who, have very busy, they've found many ways to be busy and they've got lots of things going on for them, and making room for somebody else, right? Making space for seeing somebody. So if you have a partner, you're going to be getting together with them multiple times a week. So you got to be able to think, do I have the space for that? Do I want to make the space for that?
One of the challenges when I'm helping, whether it's the adult male virgin population, which is like 20% of my practice, or people who have just been single for a long time, is telling them you have to make your love life a priority. And that means you're going to have to adjust your schedule. And those things that you're so used to doing on your own or with your friends or hanging out with this particular social group, you may need to stop doing those things just so you have the time to go out and meet somebody new.
Yeah. Speaking of, we were talking about social circles and that question that came in. You wrote a book about that. So
right. This is for my fan in Edmonton, Alberta, was it? Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for writing in. I do have a book for you. It's called How to Build a Social Circle Network, where I talk all about how you can initiate romantic relationships through your social circles without losing your social circles. Okay. And to that fan, if you write me to frank@franktalks.com, I'll give you that ebook for free as a thank you for calling in and writing in.
Very nice. Thank you. So here we have a texter that writes, long-time singlehood isn't always a red flag, especially for females in Montreal. Meeting an Anglo male who's heterosexual and doesn't immediately ask my place or yours is very difficult in this city for me and my friends. It's taking years to try to accomplish this. Well, the pool is certainly smaller, right? So we're talking about, what are we in terms of Anglo-Franco? There's a 10% Anglo population, I think, is the number that I remember hearing. So well, you're already eliminating a whole pool.
I'd really like to address this. Now, for what you're saying is you're looking for an Anglo guy. First of all, if you're planning to stay in Quebec, okay, you have to be mindful of the reality of the pool of candidates that you have.
You might want to stretch that pool.
You may want to stretch that pool, and I'm going to suggest that, well, maybe you might want to learn French. And
But a lot of Francophones speak English, so many of them are bilingual.
Well, what I'm saying is, if you are only interested in a certain type of characteristic, and there aren't enough people to meet that, the onus is on you to say, well, either I got to work harder to be a better candidate to attract those people and maybe figure out what it is they want. And if what they're looking for is sex and you're not comfortable with sex, that may be a bigger deterrent to you being single.
Well, maybe not just sex now. It's like, I get what she's saying. If the expectation is, I'll date you, but I want to have sex like first date.
But that's something you can negotiate. And if the guy is just looking for a hookup, okay, which is a different sexual value, then you're incompatible.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're planning to stay in Quebec long term and you can't find an English speaking person to date, well, if you're planning to stay here long term anyway, it's in your best interest to learn French. So learn French and find yourself a compatible partner.
But I think it's not. I think this is where specific events matter, like speed dating for the Anglo community, speed dating for the Jewish community, speed dating for the Italian community. If it's really important for you to find a partner within your cultural, religious, language, whatever it is, you have to understand your pool is much smaller, but you also have to take added steps to find them. So you have to be more proactive.
I agree with everything that all of y'all said, and especially with the events that are geared specifically to people where I can say that with Elite Speed Dating, we have never done solely French or solely English, but we have done events specifically for communities.
Right.
And that will generally tend to gear a specific language towards that event.
Exactly.
But being based in Montreal, at least we believe it's a reality of the situation. And if we don't want to decrease the pool...
But it's a choice for others. Like, it's okay. You can choose that. If that's your non-negotiable, that's your non-negotiable. Just understand it's going to be harder.
Yes.
No matter what,
Straight talk that's all inclusive. Passion with Dr. Laurie. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Lots of interesting themes and questions coming up tonight on this Dating Dilemmas. We have Frank Kermit, who's a dating coach and the author of over 20 books on the topic of dating. We have Fritz-Gerald Morisseau, who is the founder of EliteSpeedDating.com. So if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. So let's see. I have a couple of things here. Even better, date a francophone and then your French will improve. My French is basic, but my partners are usually French, and I find that my French improves when he does not speak much English, so I'm forced to speak French. That's a very good way of learning a language or perfecting a language that you may have some knowledge of, but that helps actually a lot. Let's see. Been involved in a relationship, in quotations, virtually, over the phone for almost a year now. It's been a continuous up and down roller coaster ride, and so on my end, I've been hesitant to meet due to the fact that I don't want to become even more attached and invest additional time, energy, emotions, commitment than I already have under the perpetual, unstable, inconsistent circumstances on his behalf. On the other hand, he insists he requires to meet in order to stabilize his apparent extreme hot and cold feelings, emotions, which I believe to be a personal mood or bipolar issue, and hence has nothing to do with me, us, or not having met for that matter. Stuck in a catch-22. What to do? Meet! How do you not meet after a year?
There's something more going on here. This just doesn't make any sense to me. There's something more. Why are you sticking around for a year, not having met this guy? I mean, you're talking about him having issues. You're sticking around for a year, not having met this guy, but he's the only one here with the issues.
Right.
I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah, first of all, you're not in a relationship, okay? I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean, but you're not in a relationship. If nothing more, you're having an interaction. Either meet in person and figure it out if we say continue or not. But what you're doing right now is not emotionally healthy for you either.
That's right.
And you're talking about the hot and cold and the... Are you just enjoying the drama of this? Because there's no other reason why you would be sticking around for a year with somebody that you think may have issues.
Right. Yeah, and you need
I
to
agree
find
with-
out. You need to find out
Yes.
as soon as possible in a situation like this.
Okay, but she's already saying, I don't want to get more attached. You're already attached. You've been talking to him for a year.
Okay, Frank,
You haven't
okay.
met him in person. You're already attached. Like, either meet with him or move on. But this has got to stop.
It's not healthy. I think just from a psychological point of view, this is not healthy. Too much investment in something that is virtual, that is already causing you, from what you're saying here, it's already causing you ups and downs in your emotions. So there's all kinds of things that's happening to you that isn't healthy for you. Forget him. Forget what he might be. Forget diagnosing him with anything. But what is happening with you here? You need to take a closer look.
If you don't feel safe meeting the guy, don't meet him, but stop communicating, period.
Yeah.
Okay? If you don't feel
Otherwise,
safe,
it's a
But what if
fantasy.
that's the basis of their relationship? Maybe she's just
But
afraid.
it's not a love relationship then.
That I agree with you. It's
Okay.
not a love relationship, but the whole basis of their relationship is through that screen. And
Well, she writes back, he's been promising to get it under control, and I've believed him. Getting what under control? So if he's, if he's telling you, I have mental health issues, or I have a bipolar disorder, or this is happening, and he's not under treatment, you still have. It's great that he's able to tell you this, but it's still you who has to make the decision whether you want to be with someone who takes you on a roller coaster ride. You don't have to get on the roller coaster.
you've been doing this for a year. And look,
she's already on the roller coaster.
Yeah, and look, my heart goes out to you because obviously you do care about the guy to a certain point. Otherwise, you wouldn't have stuck around. Okay. So if I got a little rough with you there, I do apologize. I do want you to understand, though, that what you're doing here, and I'm not telling you this as if I were a big brother, okay? This is not good. The longest you should go without meeting somebody in person is maybe a week of emails and phone calls. But at some point, you got to meet in person. Now, if there's other things going on and you don't feel safe, no, I'm not going to tell you to meet him. I want you to be safe. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be alive. But barring anything of that nature, meet with him in person, sit down and have a cup of coffee. It doesn't matter where. Sit down and have that cup of coffee.
Public place.
A
It
public
does matter
place.
where, public place.
Okay,
yeah.
what I mean is it doesn't matter if you go to this restaurant or that restaurant. Just go in for a cup of coffee and see how the two of you vibe in person. And if you're worried about getting more attached, maybe you shouldn't be looking at relationships. Maybe you might want to talk to somebody about the sphere of intimacy, which is probably somewhere at the source of why this would have carried on for over a year. And I don't think this is not a coaching thing. I think this is something a little bit more
thing.
a little bit more serious.
And I would definitely recommend you talk this out with a professional to see what it is about you that is maintaining this without demanding more than this. You deserve more than this.
Yeah.
So if you don't think you do, we need to address that if you want to overcome this and heal. So back to the Francophone thing. The Anglo dater was saying, I do speak French. Francophones hear my accent and turn off and walk away. You say that, but I see those couplings all the time.
No,
so
if they're walking
I don't
away,
think that they're not the right ones anyway.
They're not the right ones.
I'm sorry, no.
Let me give you the best example. My wife, my partner, the mother of my children is Romanian, learned French and English in Canada. So she immigrated here. I speak French, English, and Creole. There's languages all over the place. My Romanian is brushing up. So realistically, the more languages, the better. Mm-hmm. I believe. And it's an extra thing to talk about. It just spices everything up.
But the person that you're with has to appreciate the efforts you make and has to think your accent is cute, not get somehow runs away from, like, somebody who's going to run away because you have an accent is not the guy you want in your life.
And listen,
I would think, right?
I'm going to go out on a limb here, okay? If you and your friends are having a really hard time and you're all having a really hard time and you're blaming it on things like the person rejected me for my accent, isn't it possible that you're behaving in a way that is violating the other person's emotional needs that you're not aware of? Because when I'm coaching people and they've been single for a long time and they start listing all the reasons why, turns out it has nothing to do with those things, but it has to do with something that they're not even aware of. The way they come across, the way they act, the way they give off a vibe of get away from me, which is what people who have been single a long time end up doing without realizing it.
Yeah, so looking at oneself is the most important. When you see a pattern, you should always look at yourself a little deeper to be able to discover that.
The common element in every aspect of your love life is you.
Yeah.
Also, you might be catering to the stories that you're telling about your friends, and maybe they're all with Anglos and whatnot. Should you be, take heed of your own opinion before, putting everyone else's in. Oh, you should only be with an Anglo. Well,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. We've run out of time, but I want to thank you guys. If you want to get involved in speed dating or want to find out where the events are or just sign up and get notifications, it's free to sign up. You can get notifications when the events are there. You can also ask Fritz if there's a special request in terms of a cultural group or religion or or even area of town. He listens to all of that, so you can certainly talk to him. Go to elitespeeddating.com, elitespeeddating.com to find out more. If you want to get in touch with Frank for some dating coaching or anything like that, or find out about his work, his books, you can go to his website, franktalks.com. If you want to get in touch with me, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They're all also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We're all easy to find, really. Who can't find who in this day and age, right? At Dr. Laurie Betito, unless you can't spell my last name, which is Betito. Not potato, but Betito.
Everybody knows.
And it's not Dr. Laura, it's Dr. Laurie. Just have to put it out there sometimes, I get called Dr. Laura a lot. Coming up next on CJAD, it is the comedy show with Joey Elias. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I want to thank especially Dave Simon in Master Control for keeping us on track. We'll talk to you again tomorrow night. Maitre Linda Hammerschmidt will be in studio answering your legal questions. In the meantime, have a great rest of the evening, and remember to live your life with passion.
Need help with love, sex, dating, or relationship issues? Help from Frank Kermit, the best-selling author and Canada's most international relationship coach, is only a click away at franktalks.com.
Need help with love, sex, dating, and relationships? Visit franktalks.com.
If you need help with your relationships, my buddy Frank, he's got some tips. Just go to franktalks.com. His advice is better than your mom's. He knows what you're going through, 'cause Frank has been there too. So log on to franktalks.com, franktalks.com.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by the Adult Male Virgin Seminars and Telephone Consultations. If you are an adult and want to get a handle on this once and for all, you need this seminar. Being an adult male virgin can be most stigmatizing in today's society. You feel like a failure in the eyes of the mass culture around you, alienated from your male friends who all talk about their sexual conquests, and you must hide this shameful secret lest they use it against you. And the very personal pain, anguish, and despair that cannot be described by words that haunts you every moment of your life. Enough is enough. It is time for male virgins to take charge of their sex lives. Frank gives you the rules of winning in this seminar. The Adult Male Virgin Seminars and Telephone Consultations. Make your first time the best time of her life. Only available at franktalks.com. Frank helps adult boys turn into men.